What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Four Quarters with me, Matthew Hagan. This week we got awesome topics. One is even fan requested, and it will be our first fan requested topic.
But when you catch 11 balls for 259 yards, that's something to talk about.
We just saw men fly.
In the first quarter, we're going to be talking about who has the hottest seat between Ed Orgeron of LSU and Kevin Sumlin of Texas A&M. In the second quarter, we're going to talk about which program has been the most overrated for the past 15 years. Is it Nebraska or is it Georgia? In the third quarter, we're going to bring you who is the better current free agent defensive back between Darrelle Revis or Brandon Flowers. And in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned, we'll be bringing our first fan requested topic to the show, and that is Andy Dalton or Alex Smith. So in the first quarter, we're going to talk about who has the hottest hot seats. If we look at Ed Orgeron, he's taking over for Les Miles. Les Miles set unprecedented expectations at LSU. He's won a national championship. He went 114-34 in his time at LSU. That's winning 77% of his games. That is a lot of games. That is a lot of wins. That's not losing much. You can't get much better than that. That's why the firing of Les Miles makes no sense, and it puts Ed Orgeron on an immediate hot seat. Ed Orgeron did take over midseason, went 6-2 at LSU last season, which is only 75%. And saying only 75% seems like, well, what are you talking about? 75% of wins is pretty darn good. You're right, but when you fire a coach who's won 77% of his games, it's not good. You need to do better. If you're firing a coach, the point is to get better, and 75% isn't better than 77. So if we look at past LSU, Ed Orgeron is 22-27 as a head coach, which is only 44.9% of his games. So you fired a coach who was winning a career winning percentage of 72% for a coach with a career winning percentage of 45. LSU is probably going to win between 6 and 8 games this year, which is horrible for them. And Ed Orgeron is definitely on the hot seat, in my opinion. If we look at Kevin Sumlin has a 44-21 record at Texas A&M. That's 67.7% win percentage, which is really good as well. He's never had less than an 8-win season, and he's never missed a bowl game. And from 2012, Texas A&M went 79-69, only winning 53% of their games. He's improved their win percentage, and in those 12 or 13 years, they only went to 8 bowl games. Kevin Sumlin has been the best coach in Texas A&M history, and if they fire him, it's going to be very hard to replace a coach with his success. If you were to ask me whose hot seat is the hottest, I'm going with Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron is not going to win more than 8 games this season, and he will be fired before Kevin Sumlin. Here we are for the second quarter. This question is, whose program is the most overrated over the past 15 years? Is it Nebraska or is it Georgia? Georgia hasn't missed a bowl game since 1996. I know we're talking about the past 15 years, so they're 15 for 15 in making bowl games. Pretty darn impressive. They've also had 10 10-win seasons in the past 15 years. Incredible. Also, if you take a look at their overall record in that time, they're 146-52, which is 73.7% win percentage. On the other hand, Nebraska, they missed bowls in 2004 and 2007, so they have made 13 out of 15 of the last bowl games, and that's pretty impressive. But it's still not better than Georgia. Also, their overall record in that same time is 125-71, only winning 63.8%. They win 10% less of their games than Georgia has in these last 15 years. They also only have 4 seasons with 10 or more wins compared to Georgia's 10. So which program is the most overrated? The numbers speak for itself. Nebraska is the most overrated program of the past 15 years between these two schools. All right, here in the third quarter, we're talking about who's the better free agent DB. Is it Darrelle Revis? Is it Brandon Flowers? Who would you rather sign? And looking at the numbers, they're pretty similar. They're both 31 years old. At 31, you're not going to take age into consideration. Neither of them are too young. They're well experienced. They might be on their last feet as DBs. They may not be able to play corner. You may have to move them to safety. If we take a look at Darrelle Revis, he had 1 interception and 43 tackles in 15 games last season. Brandon Flowers only played 6 games, and he had the same amount of interceptions. He only had 19 less tackles. If I really am using projections or thinking about those other 9 games or 10 games, depending on how many Flowers could have played, he would have easily had more than 43 tackles. At this point, Darrelle Revis looked slow in his steps. He was struggling to cover people last year. You may have to move him to safety. Brandon Flowers didn't have the same problems. He looked like he can still play man coverage. He looked like he could still run with receivers and didn't look like he was getting embarrassed. Darrelle Revis, for the most part, looked like he was getting embarrassed last season. If I really had to sign one free agent at DB between these two, I'm going with Flowers, not just for the statistics. Flowers is demanding less money. If I can get a better player for less money, then that's what I will do if I were a GM. I'm projecting both will be healthy and Brandon Flowers will be cheaper. Therefore, he is the better free agent signing. All right, here we go. Fourth quarter, buckle up. It's crunch time. And in crunch time, we have our first fan requested topic of 4 quarters. I was asked to discuss Andy Dalton or Alex Smith. So I looked at the past 2 years. I'm not looking at this as going forward. I'm looking at if I need to win games this season, which quarterback would I rather have? 2 years ago, Andy Dalton played 13 games. He had 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He also added 3 touchdowns rushing on the ground, and his QBR was 75.3. The next year, he played in 3 more games. He did have 1,000 more yards at 4,206. Then Andy Dalton dropped from 25 touchdowns to 18, playing 3 more games. He lost 7 touchdowns through 1 more interception. His quarterback rating also dropped from 75.3 to 58.3. He did add 4 touchdowns on the ground, but if I look from 2015 2016, Andy Dalton actually got worse, which isn't good for a quarterback who's actually younger. So I have to take that in consideration when I'm thinking about who would I rather have, Andy Dalton or Alex Smith. Andy Dalton also is 0-4 in the playoffs. He's yet to win a playoff game. That has to hurt him. If we play the game to win, winning means winning championships, it's proven he can't win in the playoffs. It may change over time, but at this point in his career, he's 0-4. Now, let's take a look at Alex Smith. In 2015, he threw for 3,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He also had a QBR of 64.1 and added 2 touchdowns on the ground. Backtrack to last season. So he played in 15 games, 1 less game than in 2015. He threw for 3,500 yards, which in 1 less game was more yards than he did in the previous season, so his yardage improved. In 1 less game, he went from 20 touchdowns to 15 touchdowns. He probably wouldn't have had a 5-touchdown game, 2 or 3, so it wouldn't have been off much. He did have in 1 less game 1 more interception. Here's the thing I really noticed though. He also added 5 touchdowns rushing. So his total touchdowns in 1 less game was only off by 2. He could have easily had a rushing touchdown, a couple passing touchdowns if he played 16 games. The bigger picture is QBR. He went from 64.1 to 66.1. He improved as a quarterback from 2015 to 2016. Alex Smith is still capable of leading a team. He also has a 2-4 record in the playoffs. I'm sorry, Bengals fans, but I would rather have Alex Smith leading my team at this point in their careers. Alex Smith shows he can still improve under Andy Reid. He also has won playoff games in the past. I have to take that into consideration if I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. Would I rather have Andy Dalton or Alex Smith at this point in their careers? Don't forget to check out the Super Bowl series where I talk about how each team in the NFL can win a Super Bowl at thegamehouse.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @the_game_house. Also, don't forget to like us on Facebook. Hit subscribe to this YouTube video so you can see more 4 quarters and other shows like Back of House and Office Hours with Doctor. Thank you for tuning in to 4 quarters. Have a great week, y'all.